seasoned business executive, an industrialist, and an entrepreneur. He sits on the Presidential Advisory Council of Zimbabwe. He is a past president of the Confederation of Zimbabwean Industries, and he's the current chief executive of United Refineries Limited, one of the large cooking oil and soap manufacturers in Zimbabwe. I would like to call upon Mr. Busisa Moyo, and may we put our hands together as come up to the podium.
One, two. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Get through protocols, recognizing Madam President Gaga. Thank you very much for seeing it fit to invite me to your conference. It's a well-organized conference, well-attended, and the atmosphere is good. So thank you very much for the warm, professional welcome. I want to recognize Mr. Tim Shee, from whom I've learned so much in such a short space of time, in particular the little history lesson. I'll take the time to dig some more, but thank you very much. Mr. Gomera, the CEO of the Institute, thank you very much. Office bearers, vice presidents, allow me to say all protocol observed. I'm going to go through my presentation. I understand I have about 30 minutes to go through it, which is plenty of time. I've also heard that there's a desire to go back to some of the conversations of yesterday. I don't know, time only moves in one direction, forward. It doesn't have a reverse gear. But hopefully we can touch on some topics that could be of interest out of this presentation that I'm going to make. Allow me to make a qualification, and you are professionals, so you understand what a qualification means, and you understand what a disclaimer is. These views expressed in this presentation are my personal opinions. They are not advice to the president. They are not the opinions of First Capital Bank, a board on which I sit. They are not the opinions of United Refineries Limited. They are Busisa Moyo, Ubaba Ubusisa Moyo. His personal views and how he sees this topic that I have been so ably given by your Madam President. So I shall now proceed to present. Thank you. I start with a quote, because all great presentations start with a famous quote. But I don't know who said this, but I liked it when I came across it. The urgent is the enemy of the strategic, and the expedient is the enemy of the transformative. And I think part of our challenges as executives or as managers in the corporate world in a Zimbabwean context is that we are caught up with the urgent issues and firefighting and putting out fires at the expense of the strategic. I like the presentations this morning. So much validation. I felt embarrassed. I was brought up in a very humble family, so I struggled to watch even my own, when I used to preach, the guys that do the media used to give me my own clips. I still haven't watched them, Pastor Chris. I still have not gone back to watch my own clips because I struggle with myself. But I like the presentations this morning because the gentleman in particular, is it Chinembiri? Machimbira, yes. Machimbira, I don't want to call him by his first name. Machimbira was talking about, a nice top-down approach. And I said, wow, if it was so, you structure follows strategy. I like that. I learned that in business school as well. But, I finished my MBA in Europe about 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, 12 years ago. I still have the notes. And I'm still waiting to do it in the way that I learned it. Because for 12 years, I have not been able to apply seamlessly. I know the theory, ladies and gentlemen. And this also applies to my understanding of economy and economics. We have a challenge in Zimbabwe, and I'm not quite sure I have the answer of how we solve this issue of the urgent versus the strategic, of the expedient versus the transformative. Because it's very easy to say, let's do this. And a lot of us complain about government policy. I hold no brief for government. I don't work for government. They don't pay me. I pay them. I'm a taxpayer. I contribute to the fiscals. So I hold no brief for government. But the challenge that government has is that there are so many urgent issues. I understand. Did you know that since June, we have had over 80 SIs that have been issued? Since January, from January to June, you know, over 50 SIs. We are in hyper SI mode. But that shows the challenges we have. It's not that, this is the pastor in me, and I'm on Twitter and I get brickbats. Some of you, use fake names there and you shout at me and you swear at me. That's okay. It comes with the territory. I'm ready for you. But the challenge that government has is trying to put out these fires. And it's at the expense of strategic issues. I will give you an example, and I will talk very briefly, then I'll go through my presentation, which has got lots of things that you will enjoy. I was trying to get the attention of colleagues in government about the absolute urgency of attending to the agricultural season, planning for next year. Because what is urgent right now is the challenges we have. But next year, this time, if we don't prepare, if we don't get onto the fields, next year we are going to have problems like you've never seen. In a shortage of currency, in a global environment of trade wars and falling commodity prices, we will have lots of headwinds. And we are trying to get attention to say, if you don't put in maize, if you don't put in the adequate hectarage, if we don't structure colleagues in the banking sector, that's another private sector to private sector. Because one of the challenges we have in this country is private sector consensus. We can't even agree before we meet with government. And so government is actually confused sometimes. Because I walk in there with a presentation and I'm told, no, but your colleagues from the Bankers Association were here. They are talking the opposite of what you're saying. So we don't have private sector consensus. And this is a challenge where the urgent has had the strategic for breakfast. This is the challenge we have. So I want to make this statement as a preamble to color the things I'm going to say. I talk about, the things that are important for emerging economies to develop, in my view. I haven't worked in many jurisdictions. I've worked a little bit in Zimbabwe, in Botswana, in the hospitality sector. I'm an ex-TA Holdings employee. That's where I cut my teeth. And TA Holdings, when I joined it in 1999, had over 60 companies, and it was in many industries. And I was an investment executive there. Responsible basically for disposals and M&A, mergers and acquisitions. So that's where I cut my teeth. So I come from a multi-sector. I then went into the food sector where I've been operating for the last 12 years. Having worked in Botswana, a little bit in Uganda, spent some time there setting up an insurance company, Lion Assurance of Uganda, done a little bit of work in Ghana for the Volta River Authority. So I've worked in a little bit of African jurisdictions, and I'm seeing a lot of similarities, in what we are going through. And so I compiled a few notes that are based on these learnings and research from various fundis in this area. So I think if any economy or if any emerging developing country is going to emerge from its current problems, especially here in Africa, but also parts of Asia, we have to develop an understanding of the geo-socio-political landscape. Now, that's a big word, but simply we have to understand what is happening around the world. Because we are small. Zimbabwe is a very small place. It's a little country with lots of problems, but very small. It's not big. It's not a big country. And sometimes because we are stuck with the urgent, we are fighting with our issues, we then think we are very big. we think the whole world is stopping because we are grappling with our own problems. No, you are not that important. I've attended some of these meetings in Chatham House in the UK, in London. I've been in Italy for some of these meetings. One of my suppliers is here. They're telling me they're going somewhere. I won't disclose. We've been around. Zimbabwe is not a major player. So it's you that has to align. When you enter an industry and you're a small player, you are what is known as a price taker. You don't set the price. You don't set the mood globally. You're not going to set the mood. The mood is already set for you. So it's up to us to understand what is going on in terms of geopolitics. What are the interests? Because that's where opportunity lies. And that's where threats are. What are some of these subjects that are doing the rounds? My first bullet, we don't operate in a vacuum. We don't operate in a vacuum. There's interests. There is oil problems. There is oil fracking in the US. There is gas problems, a shortage of resources. We don't operate in a vacuum. So whatever strategies to develop our economy that we are coming up with must fit into a geopolitical context that is relevant for our benefit. Make sense? Governance models, democracy versus autocracy. These are the subjects that are doing the rounds in terms of geopolitics. And democracy is the best model we know in terms of governing countries and governing nations. We came from monarchies, we went through aristocracy, now we are in democracy, and finally when Jesus comes back, we will be in theocracy. So that's the model of human life summarized in 4 words. And we are in this epoch, this dispensation where democracy is the governance model. But we do have exceptions, like China. China is still not a democracy, but it is growing. And this is why people like Paul Kagame are starting to question issues of democracy. And also here in Zimbabwe, we've got debates that are going. Debate is good, colleagues. We shouldn't be afraid of debate. Civil debate, respectful debate. To have conversations and engage. But these are conversations. I won't go through all of them. Colleagues, this morning we're talking about talent recruitment. Global talent recruitment is becoming more fluid. People now can be hired. I've been offered jobs where I don't have to leave Bulawayo. I can do it as long as I have the right connectivity. And I can do some consulting. I can do so our world is changing. I wanted to share with you, I don't have time, but I wanted to share with you that in 1982, a gentleman called Buck Fuller wrote a book called Critical Path. And in Critical Path, there's a chapter there on what is known as the doubling effect. And he talks about the doubling effect of knowledge. The fact that it took 4,000 years for the first time for human knowledge to double. The next doubling took 1,500 years. The next doubling took 250 years. By 1945, it was taking 25 years for human knowledge to double. Now, it takes about 13 months for human knowledge to double. Futurists predict that it will take, Mugaga will be talking about digital economy, that it will take 12 to 13 hours for knowledge to double in the very near future. That may sound like very interesting statistics, but it's a very important thing to understand that knowledge is on the increase. Daniel chapter 12, verse 4. In the last days, knowledge shall increase. So the Bible warned us well before time that knowledge would increase, and we are seeing that. The thing I want to say, there's a point at which this knowledge becomes scary, and you can read up on it. It's called singularity. When knowledge becomes so exponential that living becomes actually a very complex thing. And where I had the opportunity of going to Davos in 2018, and that's where the conversation, I'm saying these things to illustrate that we are a small country in a very big planet, and there are things that are going on in this planet. And we could be overtaken by events whilst we are caught up with our own politics and all these other things that we are doing, and our neighbors are not waiting, they are moving on. Climate change, I won't talk about that. I wanted to put this slide to show you that in these geo-socio-political issues, there are opportunities. For example, Brexit is one of the issues that is doing the rounds. There are opportunities in Brexit, and I'm sure colleagues are taking advantage of that, whether you're in the mining sector. How many people from the mining sector here? You work in the mining sector. Let's put it. No, it's not a trick question, and you won't be reprimanded. I just want to see how many people come or work in the mining sector. Agricultural sector, processing, agricultural sector, financial services, banking, tourism. Okay, so representation. But, Brexit presents very interesting opportunities for us in processing in particular. And I can combine the first one with the third one, which is talking about return to organics, which is something I'm working on personally, and I have a personal interest in the fact that the world is reverting back to organic foods. I was in the US last year for about a month, and we were going around seeing what the supermarkets are stocking, and we found out that an organic product in the US sells for a premium of about 10 to 15% if you are organic. So organic cooking oil, for example, no fertilizers, no chemicals and so on, just organic, using organic farming methods. 10 to 15% you can get. If you do cold pressed organic oil, which means you don't heat, you can command a premium of 30 to 40% in terms of pricing, generic commodity pricing. So these are opportunities that are starting to do the rounds. People are going to gym. How many people go to gym at least 3 times a week? Put up your hands. I've got my hand up. Anyway, with your stress levels, I would encourage you. Okay, how many do marathons? Okay, there's other ways of exercise. Marathons, running. You run every morning. Gym plus running plus marathons plus walking. No, not walking to the gates to close the gate. That doesn't count. If you are walking to the gate, with the amount of stress and with the amount of knowledge increasing, I was saying to colleagues that the amount of communication, Twitter plus LinkedIn plus email plus WhatsApp, and this is WhatsApp without going to Masteta 7, because I don't have time to actually look. All the communication that we've got, you've got an overload, and you need a healthy and a fit body. But before we talk about fitness, we need to understand that fitness starts with health. We medicate through food. You can either medicate through your diet, or you can go to the doctor and pay for not eating the right food. And you can do a discounted cash flow of that yourself. So basically you eat healthy every day, or you eat unhealthy, and then you pay the price through a big doctor's bill. But the environment that we live in is such that, and these are the subjects that are one of the best businesses to do now in the developing world is gyms. All kinds of gyms, ladies only gyms, over 50 gyms, baby boomer gyms. They've got everything. All kinds of, because people are concerned about issues of health, and food plays right into there. I say that because Zimbabwe's correlation to agriculture is above 60%. Correlation coefficient, if you remember that from your maths, those who did statistics. Correlation coefficient above 60%, which means it's almost a unitary relationship between agriculture and GDP in Zimbabwe. So we are an agro-based economy. That's who we are, and so food is very much a part of that. I think that after understanding the geopolitical environment, we have to develop a sound governance matrix at a national level. And this is a very difficult slide for me, because I try and stay away from politics. As a pastor, and as a supplier of cooking oil, I don't ask whether you are MDC or ZANU-PF. I just want you to pay the price of cooking oil. Once I become political, you may take a position with my products, and you may take a position with my church. So I will present a very platonic slide, but you'll get the message. It's very important as a country, if we want to develop, any developing economy must pay attention to this, because if you don't, Anything you do after this, I'm trying to do this sort of in a nice sequential flow, but this is an iterative process. Democratic processes are very important. In order to be allowed at the table of nations, you have to demonstrate your democratic processes. You have to show. That's what gets you at the table. That's what gets you the interview. And there's very little we can do to get away. I told you a little short history. It was deliberate to tell you that we came from monarchies, we went through aristocracy, we are now in democracy. We can't change the rules. Those are the rules. Now it's up to us to decide what we are going to do with our democratic processes. The challenge I have, and I'm going through these slides very quickly. Each of these slides, when I was pacing myself, takes about 5 minutes, but I don't have, because I got 24. So I don't have the time to go through it blow by blow. But I just wanted to say that these building blocks are instructive. You need these things. Your democratic processes lead to strong rule of law. Competent institutions. Once you compromise on the first, it's difficult for you to have competent institutions. So don't get confused. Because sometimes we'll have, hey, corruption, why is there so much? Just let's go methodically. Let's go methodically. Once you go methodically, you will understand. At least you will understand. Am I saying it's right? No. I'm saying let's understand what we are dealing with. Make sense? So, strong families. It's a very important value system. One of the challenges we've got in society, Wafundis, Pastor Chris Wabuda, we've got a big challenge. I know there are other pastors here. Any pastors, pastoral sector, elders, deacons, I know there are many. Zimbabwe is an amazing country. 70% statistically Christian. 70%. But the corruption, Chikisa. 70% Christian. And there's so much corruption. This is mind-boggling. No, it's not. I understand the issue. If we don't pay attention to this, Chero Wafundis, they will struggle. Strong family units are a fundamental unity of functional societies. And I'm glad that in Zimbabwe, this is one thing we can save. We rarely talk about it because we are caught up with politics, Varakashi, Jecha. We are caught up with that. We forget that strong families are the building block of any society. Constitutionalism, very important. Respect for private property. I was showing Tim that I'm looking at a book called A Short History of Man. And in that book, it's a recommended reading, Short History of Man. Look for that book. It talks about the origins of private property. Why private property? And why private property is so important. Because it allows a human being to determine their means. Once I don't know that there is respect for private property, I will not invest. I wanted to say this to you. Did you know that they say every time throughout the history of land, and in Zimbabwe we understand land, our what? Our prosperity. So, did you know that they say that 1 year after giving bankable title to land, all that land is either fenced, walled, or gated? 1 year after people have title that's bankable, and they say, okay, I can go to the bank and get a loan. That person, even Chero Asna Mari, to build a fence using national fencing or bonox wire, he will get stones and put a perimeter to demarcate his land. As long as you're not seeing boundaries and fencing and gates, you don't have title. And you have dead capital, which is an issue we are struggling with right now. We've got lots of capital, but it's dead capital. It's not working for anyone right now. Make sense? You follow so far? National vision. We have a 2030 vision. The challenge with the 2030 vision that we have is that all those other boxes have challenges. It's difficult to galvanize and pull people until they buy into how you've played with all those other boxes. Planning and execution of your best ideas becomes a challenge. Pulling people to say, let's go. Hande. When you say hande, you want to hande to own. So Now you've got total conflict. You can't pull the country in one direction, and these are the challenges. So, colleagues, I said that to say we need a sound governance matrix. Any country that wants to develop in our world, do I like it? Am I a proponent of democracy? It doesn't really matter. That's the way the world is. Just like the way to God is salvation through the person of Jesus Christ. You don't have the power to change it. You will end up somewhere else. That's the way God designed it. You didn't like that one. I wanted to show you this one. This is just a schematic of the map of Africa showing democratic versus autocratic. You see Zimbabwe there. This was in 2016, conveniently, so to avoid controversy. 2016. And in 2016, we were rated partly free. The important thing is that the standard deviation for growth rates in terms of GDP growth is more volatile for autocratic societies than it is for democratic societies. Now, I'm a purist when it comes to maths. If it's mathematically correct, there must be something good about it. This is mathematically correct. I may not like democracy. You may not like democracy. You may think of a better model. But this is what empirical evidence shows if you want to achieve economic stability. Difficult to contest numbers like that. In order to develop a functional, vibrant, modern society, you have to have a stable microeconomic environment. It's the bedrock of prosperity. And I won't go into this. These are heavy slides because there's so much in there. But some of it is very relevant to our environment. We need a clean break from inflationary economics. Inflationary economics. Zimbabwe has had a history of inflationary economics for a long, long time. It is the way we run the economy, through inflation. When we want to do something, it's inflationary. And this is our challenge. And this is what we are grappling with, to say, how do we have a break from this habit of inflationary economics and everyone is happy? That's why there's austerity and all these things. We are trying to break away from that. But I wanted to say that M0 grew by 80% since January to about last week. 80%. So, and you'll see that in the IMF Article 4 report. Is there, it's public, you know. So I'm not divulging non-public information. Export generation still remains a key issue for us. Running fiscal deficits is a big challenge that we have. And it's linked to those inflationary economics that I was talking about. We need to live not within our means, but below our means. That's what, in part, that's what austerity was supposed to achieve. To say, let's rein in fiscal expenditure. And it's not new. I think you will remember Minister Chinamasa tried once. You remember the time when he tried to do a salary freeze. How many remember that? Do you remember that salary freeze attempt? It was a recognition that we've got a challenge with fiscal deficits. But none of us in private sector supported that decision. Very few. How many are in the public sector, by the way? Public sector. You work for government or parastatal or just parastatal sector. Wow. Fair. Good. I'm wondering why we can have challenges, Madam President. You have lots of people who are schooled in governance. I'm wondering why we've got challenges in some of these institutions when we have got governance experts, not practitioners, experts, qualified, chartered. Again, but I won't bash chartered secretaries because in Ripama Christ. I just want to stop at the Christian. Chero, even if you are not a chartered secretary, Urim Christ. So, pressure on civil service wages bill already starting to have pressure there. Subsidies. This is what leads to fiscal deficits. Corruption. That's what leads to, we are basically funding those fiscal deficits as taxpayers and paying for it indirectly through inflation. Trade deficits, a big challenge we have. What I'm glad about is that the trade deficit is coming down because we are 1/3 of what we were in terms of trade deficit. 400 million, this is year to date. 400 million versus 1.2. But the challenge with Zimbabwe is statistics. My statistics edu, they have challenges, okay? But as long, my statistics professor said, as long as you are comparing like with like, you should be directionally correct. So it has come to that, and I'm happy about that. I think it will have a good impact, especially on exchange rate. Because this export or import dependence affects our demand. We heard the governor bemoaning the supply and demand. The demand side is driven by our love for imports. We like things we cannot afford as a country, and that then we ask, ko rate irukwizwa nani? Notsvaga varoi. Of course, luxuries, they've tried to rein in by putting duties in forex. Leaders need to set an example. You know, I think that's everyone's cry. But the problem I've got with that is that, you know, if you read John C. Maxwell, he talks about 360 leadership. That you need, before you can influence somebody, you yourself need to demonstrate the desirable. Who's going to start? If professionals are saying government should start, show us prosperity yacho. Austerity tanga imimi koko kumsoro. Itai austerity yacho ikoko imimi. Then kana mapedza ikoko mozodzika kuno. But then what kind of country is that? Localizing value chains. But Tirima Christo. Localizing value chains, very important. We import, when you produce local soya for our sector, you save 40% in forex by farming it locally. Those are the numbers without getting into detail. You save 40%. Again, I use the soya sector. It is a case study. It applies to grain, to sorghum, to soft drinks, to toothpicks. It applies to everything. The things that we import. Confidence deficit is our biggest challenge. Minister Mtuli Ngube was saying, fiscal deficit, trade deficit, the twin deficits, I've got them. And I said to him, Minister, likoshle one other big dragon that we've got. This one here. And if this one is there, the other two, you will struggle. As long as we don't deal with the confidence deficit, we will have challenges. This is a model for any economy that is challenged. Managing conflicts of interest, red tape and bureaucracy, opacity, lack of information. Let me go quickly. What are some of the key? I've got 6 of them. Exchange rate stability, we've spoken about that. Interest rates, the cost of money. These are things that government has to pay attention to. Maybe let me say financial services sector, because Reserve Bank by itself cannot do much. If the banks are not on site, if Bankers Association is not communicating the things that we feel as their clients, then we've got challenges. Dr. Mangunja, some time ago, as they say in Nigeria, some time ago, he said, if you sign a loan for above 20% interest per annum, it's an NPL on signing. An NPL means a non-performing loan. It's a non-performing loan on signing. The moment you sign it, of course, it was a different context because inflation then was 5%. Now we have inflation 300 according to Article 4. Steve Hanke says it's 780. You know, so everybody, it's any man's guess because we've also suspended inflation statistics. All right, let's leave macroeconomics. It's too difficult. Any economy that wants to develop must develop a private sector-led market system. If you don't have market systems, you will have market failure. And when you have market failure, you cannot grow the economy. Governments do not grow economies. It's entrepreneurs and the corporate sector. That's what grows an economy. Because the profit motive is the purest, clearest motive. Everybody knows what you're after. And that's why the private enterprise, we must. That's why some of us want to be in the room. Say, hey, PAC, Kushanda. No way, Jose. We must be in the room. If you are talking business, I must be there. If I'm not there, Manamike must be there. One of us must be there. We are not there. I'm not there talking about Wisisa Moyo's views. My views, I'll give you an example. My views are rand. You all know it. Well, many of you know it. That's my personal view. But when we go into these fora like PAC and we are representing majority private sector interests. Please, those that follow me on Twitter, that's what we do. We sit down, ZNCC, uyomgagari popan. CZI, I come from there. Ruzvidzo and I talk 3-4 times a week. ICSAZ, Institute of Chartered Accountants, Tapiwa Chizana is my friend. Bankers Association, FBC, we represent private sector interests because we have noticed the challenge that leadership in this country, especially appointed or political leadership, tends to represent very narrow interests. And we wanted to do it differently, to say let's reach out widely. I'm here at your conference. I should have been at my factory. There's lots of issues there. Why am I here? I'm here to reach out, to listen, to hear. So that when I'm walking into these places, I'm not representing what I'm thinking. I'm gauging national mood. I'm saying private sector has a role to play everywhere. Please do not, whoever is in power, and I'll say this, whoever is in power, private sector must never ever abrogate its responsibility because private enterprise will die. When private enterprise dies, you and I have no jobs. Somebody said, you know, things are not working. Of course they are not working. You don't print $10 billion over 5 years, compress it into 8 months and expect things to work. Because that's what we've done. We've practiced inflationary economics for 5 years. Now we've compressed the geje, we've let go. Of course you're going to have problems. Of course things are not going to work. Of course you're going to have income disparity. Let's be serious. This is what we are dealing with. We are dealing with incomes. We are dealing with pensions. We are dealing with productivity. But my point, colleagues, Makristo, let's not abrogate our responsibility as private sector. Chero, whether we like a person or not, he must hear what we are thinking. They must know what we are thinking. And that's what we are there for, to reach out. Private sector-led economies are very important, and we must press for them. What does it mean? I just want to talk about this. My time is probably up now. The profit motive, very pure. Business exists for return to shareholders. It's in question, Tim. Thank you. It's a multi-stakeholder, so we need another motive there, maybe a broader motive. How do you build a free market economy? Minimal government intervention. Government has to reduce its footprint. If you wanted to know my thinking, you say, what is your thinking? What are you telling the president? This is what I'm telling you. Market, minimal government intervention. Because that's what I believe. That's what my colleagues believe. Competition. In our sector, when I started, there were 3 players. It was me, Cephas, and Olivin. Now we have 8 players. We've got an 8th guy who's setting up in Chitungwiza. I believe in competition. If I was eating, you think I eat by inviting competition? If I want to eat, I create a monopoly. Give me some slack. If somebody wants to eat and enjoy, but what we are after, what are we after? We are after a free market economy where people can come into a sector, compete. Why? Because it's good for countries. It's good for me to think, how do I compete with Zimgold now? But raha. Shemafuta so. So, and why am I getting, I'm employing brilliant people, chartered secretaries to help me to win against Raha? Competition is good because it makes us sharper. Because if we can compete here, we can compete globally, we can compete regionally. Colleagues, as business people, as functionaries within business, we must advocate for free market economics. And there are other markets that I've talked about. I don't have time to talk about them. I have to rush now. But one of the issues is labor. Labor market. Our labor is based on NEC systems. And NEC sometimes can be very difficult to work with because when production is down, we struggle. It's a little bit better now after the new legislation. I've forgotten after that Zuba judgment, the legislation that came. It's a little bit better now for investors. But still, we have a challenge with the labor market. We should be more creative and more innovative. I don't have time to go through this. But these are pillars for a vibrant market economy. Policy and business environment, very important. What are you telling the President, Moyo? This issue. Companies Act, Business Rescue, Zimbra, ease and cost of doing business. The same things I was telling Mugabe. Ease and cost of doing business. It's very important. If you don't lower the cost, you can't be competitive. You can't say export. Generate exports. How do you generate exports when your costs are so big? Creating an entrepreneurial class. I got to go fast now. Pulling in necessary infrastructure. These are key pillars to developing any emerging economy. Pulling in necessary infrastructure. You have to pull in the infrastructure. Note, we don't push in infrastructure, which is sometimes a mistake we make, and that's why we end up with white elephants. We create infrastructure, then hope people will use it. That's the wrong way. We look at what is there. What is private sector doing? You note I started with private sector. Once you have a market economy, you then say, where is my private sector going? And you create infrastructure, because infrastructure is the most efficient mechanism through which society stores and distributes value. Recommended reading, M. Christensen, The Prosperity Paradox. Very important. We must not look at just education. Say we've got education infrastructure. We must look at the curriculum. The examining ZIMSEC. ZIMSEC yacho, what is in the curriculum? Because you can have this infrastructure, but if what you are pushing through the infrastructure is not valuable, you will have challenges. Economic sector development. My time has run out. These are some of the sectors, and some of us work in those sectors. We saw by hands being raised, agriculture and mining. There is this notion that we are finished. There's nothing. Tapera. That is good, maybe politicking. I don't come from that world. My mother didn't raise me that way. What I do know is that Zimbabwe is ranked 25 as a gold producer with all our problems. This is out of 189 countries. Makristo, mwari akakudai, akaisandarama pasipe makupetsoka zinyi. In terms of reserves, we are the second largest gold reserves per square kilometer. Please tell me there is nothing worth fighting for. Tell me that all this that we are doing, engaging, wanting to emerge as an economy is meaningless. I don't think so. When you've got the second largest gold reserves per square kilometer, I think it's worth it. I think we must be in the room. I think we must profile solutions. I think we must try at least to get our country going again, because we've got all these blessings. Fifth largest platinum producer today, not tomorrow. There's no economy. The economy is not finished. As long as we are number 5, I think there's something there. I think we just need to manage things better. I'll just focus on this sector. And then I've got a gift. Who can tell me how many UNESCO heritage sites Zimbabwe has? Madam President, you'll allow me to do this. My staff require that when I come to a meeting like this, I must promote our products. Otherwise, they do not release me. So this is not marketing. It's just a gift to the person who's going to tell me we are the makers of Royal Cooking Oil and Image Soap, among a few other products. Who can tell me in one breath? Please don't go to Google. All the people at the end of the rows, you are my prefects. Please make sure no one Googles. Tell me the 5 accredited UNESCO heritage sites in Zimbabwe. And you will get this. Put up your hand and I will choose you. Yes, sir, at the back, very bold. Tick. 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 I'm about to close. Session chair. Matopo stick. H5. 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 Eh? No. Shh. Saka, you will have to share. You will just a royal. Then Ambia was a image. Mana pools is the last one. So well done. Compliments of United Refineries. My colleagues are very strict, so please pardon me, ladies and gentlemen, for that short, but I had to do it. What I'm saying, this country is blessed. We've got what it takes because we've got things like the things that my brother and my sister, they were mentioning. This country has a lot to go for, and it's worth us getting our act together and getting this place to go. Services, we are well known. Our colleagues in the diaspora are running the banking services sector in South Africa, in Botswana. We've got about 2-3 MDs in the insurance sector in Botswana. So this country is well endowed with so many things for it to emerge. I talk a little bit about our sector there. That's capacity utilization. We talked about it yesterday. I was going to share with you some things there. Very worried about 2019 because we are looking at probably half that, if at all. There will be some capacity, but certainly it's not going to be as high as that because of some of the challenges we are seeing. This is a rainfall forecast from SAFROC. I won't talk much about that. I'll encourage you to grow soya this season if you're thinking. And then I'll conclude. In order, colleagues, to create social cohesion around the issues that I've been talking about, I think we need to understand very clearly that divergence does not mean that we are enemies. Difference of opinion does not mean that we are rivals. Maturity is the capacity to interface, to handle, and manage difference. This is our biggest challenge in this country. How do we manage our differences? I've got some recommended readings, some books that you can take a hold of and read. Madam President, thank you.
To Babu Moyo for that wonderful presentation. I won't dilute it, but I would ask you to join us afterwards for the question and answer session. I know you've probably aroused a lot of interest amongst the delegates, and they would like to ask you one or two. Ladies and gentlemen, please pardon us. The aircon is not functioning because there is no ZESA. So the capacity of the generator probably can't pull the aircon, so we're making do with the big fans by the end. But please bear with the hotel. Birds do not attend flight schools. Rivers do not attend flowing colleges. Fishes do not attend swimming conferences. Trees do not attend fruit-bearing seminars. There is something that you can do automatically that someone may not do. Find it and do it. There is something someone may do automatically that you may not do. Leave it for him to do it. If we all play our part in these economic challenges, we'll make Zimbabwe a better place to be. If we could also avoid being the mayors that we were told about yesterday, we could all make this place a better place and a better economy. Thank you so much, Mr. Busisa, for that wonderful presentation. It takes us to the next presentation. Oh, I hadn't asked the House to give you a round of applause, probably because you didn't give me a token of your products. I'm aggrieved. May we give Mr. Busisa another round of applause for his presentation? And I was saying, how dare you give people on the other floor when I'm the one who ushered you? Thank you so much. That takes us to our next presentation. And I was just wondering, I'm privileged today to introduce yet another pastor from introducing one, and I'm introducing another one. I don't know what the Spirit is saying to me today. Or is repent from being a mayor? Is that so? Thank you so much. Our next presentation, ladies and gentlemen, is on the role of digital economy in organizational success. The role of digital economy in organizational success. To take us through is the Chief Executive Officer of ZNCC, Mr. Christopher Takunda Mgaga, who is an economist by profession and training, an avid reader of business magazines. He is a speaker of note and present on both national and international forums with a special bias to macroeconomic issues. He is a prolific writer who contributes in a number of publications, including the Sunday Mail of Zimbabwe, the Financial Gazette, and the Herald. Christopher sits on a number of boards, which include Competition and Tariff Commission in Zimbabwe, Standards Association of Zimbabwe, Chinhoyi University of Technology, and on the National Code of Corporate Governance. He's won many accolades, including the MegaFest 2017 Strategic Business Leadership Award. Let's put our hands together for Mr. Mgaga.
Future of driving. Nothing to be afraid of. Because we're working on safer cars for a safer tomorrow. With large-scale data-driven development. At the BMW Autonomous Driving Campus.
I'm sure it's done. Thank you very much. If I may ask in the room before I proceed, anyone who can interpret the video for us? In simple terms, what are we seeing there? Can I have a hand? Yes. Just raise your voice maybe. A driverless car. What could that imply today, in today's world? I'm sure you saw a ghost, isn't it? And imagine if you had died maybe 10 years ago and you're back. You know, when we were growing up, we used to have these ghosts we hear about. I don't know whether ghosts exist. I don't know. Pastor, are they ghosts? Are they real? Or it's a figment of someone's imagination. But just a ghost stopping a vehicle, then it realized there's no one inside. And it's something else. Another image there, I think we have Catholics in the room, isn't it? I know there was a debate regarding the millennials. I was listening closely. If you have millennials around you, what does that mean? Look at the difference. 2005, the top picture. Around 2013-14, the lower picture. The Catholics listening to the Pope. If you are not aware of what's happening and you see the picture bottom there, you say people are not listening to the Pope, isn't it? They are busy with their gadgets. So that's the world's direction. Thank you very much. As you heard, my name is Chris Mgaga Takunda. I always wonder, I used to wonder what Mgaga means until I visited Uganda in East Africa. You know what Mugaga means when you're in Uganda? In Uganda, Mugaga means a very rich man. Thank you very much. Allow me to observe protocol. Madam President, you know, with such brilliant speakers since morning, when you are given an opportune time to present before them, it's always a Herculean task, isn't it? It's very difficult. See you all. Being invited for such forums, I'm my mind tells me this is my first time to your association to be part of it. But I want to believe my presentation will somehow do justice so that tomorrow you invite me again, isn't it? Thank you very much. And all respected delegates, you know the reason why we are relevant when we are presenting is because of the delegates in the room. So just a round of applause for delegates. I think the culture had been of us, you just clap hands for us after speaking, but you are the reason here. I know verdicts, you're the best judges. After presenting, it's either this was a lackluster presentation or what. But we need to impress you. So allow me to present on digital technology and its impact. Someone asked me, Zimbabwe, I will use the word digitization. I hear some say digitalization, which is still fine, but I will try to use digitization. I'm happy in the room. We have bankers in the room. We've got people from ICT, people from telecompanies, your T1, Econet. I've spoken to quite a number. My presentation will touch on a number of issues. I think I had to make sure that I'm cautious to follow the theme of the event. If you talk of economic success, are we ready for digitization as a country? Are we not already digitized? How does it help? A finance manager seated outside somewhere in your office, a CEO, and you see a young guy, a millennial, you're talking to him. He's looking upon his phone or a laptop. Is that disrespect? Oh, these are the issues we also need to appreciate. But let me hasten before I get or delve into my presentation to say, millennials are different from most of us. Their appreciation, when you are busy looking, rather, sometimes at the value, they also look at the price. Growing up, we're taught, teach your kids the value of something, not the what? The price. But they also know the price. You buy a good phone for them, the next thing is it from Apple? Is it from Huawei? Where is it from? The same happens. Even when you talk of bonus, incentives in your companies, someone will feel if you can give them an iPhone X Max, it's better than a stand somewhere. So that's where we are going. Thank you very much. I'm sure my presentation will be done as fast as possible. I'll look at the global context, regional context, and then the Zimbabwean case. Hopefully to allow. Most of the headlines, I think most of us will hear about headlines. Let's read here. Digital technology, is it a fact or a fad? You can choose to call. What is a fad? It's like a crazy, it's something, a 9 days wonder, isn't it? A 9 days wonder, an event which creates a sensation for a time but is soon what? Forgotten. But I think it is not. Let's look at the headlines you can see there. Yahoo sells to Verizon in saddest the 15 billion, in saddest the 5 billion deal in tech history. I think that was 2016. Most of you know about Nokia. Nokia CEO ended his speech saying this: we didn't do anything wrong, but somehow we lost it. Obviously, the question will be, is this a correct statement from a CEO of Nokia to say we're correct in what we're doing? Maybe. I know some from Econet. Econet is cassava spin-off wants to be the next 10 cent of Zimbabwe by Quartz Africa. I think if I'm not wrong there, cassava could be the first fintech company to list on a local booze, on a stock exchange, isn't it, in Africa? So I think it's a big pull for a company. It was quite a brave listing. I think looking at the economic environment and you go public, I think it's something we also need to applaud as a nation. Look at, today, this morning, I read a headline, Nick Mwana PMSEC, saying digitization is the PMSEC, he's talking of ZBC, is behind by 40% in terms of digitization. That was today's headline. So, ladies and gentlemen, digitization, Liquid Telecom connects Cape to Cairo with the One Africa. I think you know about it. Safaricom's M-Pesa Global has been nominated for the Global Mobile Awards under the category of the Best Mobile Innovation for Commerce. In South Korea, rushes 5G launch to beat Verizon. Oh, Babu Sisa was just talking about the trade wars. I think most of you know today, Huawei is a challenge in the United States of America. Today, when Mr. Trump wakes up, his biggest worry, I think you know there were sanctions on ZTE and Huawei, which led to serious losses. The difference between going global in a digitized world and going global selling soybeans is your tariffs might not make sense. We need to open borders. Mr. Trump slapped sanctions on Huawei. He knows very well 5G is reality. And the Chinese compromise on democracy. But in terms of technology, I think we can't take away. They are coming up. So in his wisdom, he thinks your big corporates in Wall Street, NASDAQ, they need to be protected from such a massive competition, rather massive competition from the Chinese. I'm not going to read everything. I don't know whether it's clear what's written there. Digitization. It is a way of doing business that embraces innovation, less bureaucratic decision making, and with customer experience high on the priority list. Digitization, let's agree. The customer is the king. You need to listen to the customer first before you talk of what you want. Long back it used to be mass production. Economies of scale. Let's produce so that the cost per unit will go down. You can't afford that now. Maybe allow me to go down here. I'm not a trained pastor, but I preach. So if I appear like I'm preaching, it will be good for all of us, isn't it? Enabling people to accomplish more with data and technology. What are the market forces that are driving digital transformation? World Wide Web, almost 50.8%. Look at the numbers in terms of WWM. Percentage of a global population online, 105 million combined internet users coming online, just India and China. One day I was asking myself, why is it that the biggest tech companies in the world, their CEOs are coming from India? I think they found something. You look at the top 10 biggest companies in the world by market capitalization. I think 8 of them are ICT. To that, maybe if you look, maybe it's just, I don't know, Johnson & Johnson, maybe ExxonMobil, who are not in that space. So possibly gone are the days where you wake up and say, if you start a company, be patient, and 2-3 years, it will make sense. Gone are also the days where you don't like a player in the market. Let me give a practical example of EcoCash. Maybe you're not friend to EcoCash, but you say, I will not use EcoCash because I don't like cassava. You're out, isn't it? Because in Zimbabwe, sometimes EcoCash is more liquid than money. In fact, EcoCash is money, isn't it? It is money. It depends on what you define as money, but EcoCash is no longer a platform, but it is money, for example. Big data, market was estimated to grow from 28.65 billion last year to about 66.7 billion by 2021. IoT, that's Internet of Things. McKinsey predicts the Internet of Things market will be worth 581 billion for ICT-based spend alone by 2020. That's staggering. Growing at a compound annual growth rate of between 7 and 15%. Mobile communications. I think what is more closer for this country in terms of digitization, I think it's mobile. Yesterday, the deputy governor about how internet penetration, how mobile penetration, can I call it, is quite strong in Zimbabwe. So in other words, she was also talking digitization. In my presentation, I'll show how we fare in terms of mobile penetration vis-a-vis other countries in the world. As of 2015, roughly 84% of US adults had smartphones. The exposure to smartphones has helped society gain technological fluence and accept digital technology as commonplace. Smart mobile connections, 1 billion more mobile connections than people worldwide. I think even in Zimbabwe, there could be more lines than, I'm not sure if it is than people or subscribers, but I think it's subscribers for now. 1.7 million new robots transform the world's factories by 2020. Supplies in America will surge by 16% and in Europe by 8%. I'm looking at the global perspective, then I'll get into Zimbabwe to see if this language is common. Or someone, you have to ask it. These robots, do we have robots? Possibly 1 or 2 companies. I was in China just last week. You get into a factory. This is just a fraction of the factory. You see two people working in a factory with a top line of 2 billion. So when we talk digitization, HR experts, when you're training people, as a CEO of a chamber of commerce in a country, I would trust a machine if it can do better than you. So also look at robotics as a quasi-human being. I don't know. It's for the future, isn't it? We need to be real on that. I think we agreed in terms of digital evolution. At one point, seeing a computer was so prestigious, isn't it? That's like having a phone. I remember the late 90s, maybe for those who are, the others who are more privileged, you had a phone prior to 98, 99. But 99, that's when I had a one-on-one with a phone. And it was a source of pride, isn't it? Prestige, a sign of wealth. That's how times are moving. At that point, someone was just maybe joking and saying, look, if you get into a meeting or you meet someone, if you want to know that, if you want the person to know that you are not poor, just put a phone on the table, isn't it? That was then. When we talk now, someone will whisper and say, oh, is that so? But it was. If a phone rings, everyone will be like, wow, here's a phone. So look at the revolution here. From 1941, 59, your IBM, I don't know if this is, but I'll just try to explain without necessarily you focusing on what. You look, Internet Oracle, between 1990 and 1996, I think Apple was incorporated as a company in 1977. It was already there. We started big players, your Microsoft, Amazon, Yahoo, Netflix, Google. Between 1997 and 2003, your Tesla, everyone knows Tesla, I'm sure, Skype. In 2004 to 2008, look at the Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Amazon, Kindle, Airbnb. You're a business. You're the accountant, you're the FD of a company. You're asking, do we need to buy that building? We've got biggest players in the world who don't own any asset in terms of building, but they own what? The service. Some are still naive just to think if you don't own an asset, you don't have a business model. I give an example of Airbnb. A number of players, hotels, I think in Zimbabwe we had a certain hotel also with just running management contract, no asset, isn't it? Some of you maybe you're working there also. Uber, Bitcoin, I think all we know. WhatsApp, this is the revolution. So it's a fact that digitization is coming. It's not a what? A fact. To answer a question here, I think the debate when people were asking, these millennials, what do they want? They're at work. You have such a generation. I think you see the trend now. Most companies, how they have a bias to, sometimes, is it cheap labor? Because you see most companies, 70-80% of employees are young people. Maybe they are cheaper to employ, but this is what we have in our companies. Look at the behaviors with a digital consumer. All the behavior, get to a human. You need someone. You need someone to solve my problem. Expectation, the digitization, I prefer to solve my problem. I have a headache. You just Google, isn't it? Someone was asking about, Busisa, in heritage sites. He was afraid within 30 seconds that would have Googled, isn't it? I want to solve it now. You can't wait for tomorrow to say, you know, when we used to, in our rural areas, when you are there, you know there's only one bus. And the only way you can solve something in Harare, if you miss the bus at 5 a.m., you are done. The day is done. But the current thinking, because of digitization, is, I want to take control of my problem now. I'm pregnant as a lady. Today is 26, 27 maybe. By 29, days are closed. Can I have a kid by, in the next 2 days? That's the birthday I want for my kid. That's the world. Let's get this over with. Micro moments. Let's take a step forward while I have a moment. You don't suspend something and say, I'm going to do this after I cover this. You want to do it simultaneously. Avoid interruptions. I don't want to start over and repeat myself. I think this one, get it right. Interruptions. I don't want to start over and repeat myself. Expect interruptions. Let's pick up right where we left off. Just like you're playing your song in the car. I think you prefer the song will continue from where you left it than for it to start again. I think I can give an example of that. Then in money being bigger than time. Don't waste my money. That was the old thinking. Now it's time. Don't waste my time because time is money. If you're a consultant, you're paid every 2 hours. So if you're paid $200 every hour, so it means if you waste my time, you'd wasted my how much? $400. That's where we're moving. Let me not waste time on the global industry trends here. But 2019, if you look, you're in business, you're global figures, you're global leaders. I don't think you look yourself as just people from Zim. You're global. Your profession actually it's international. So let's talk international here. Mergers and acquisitions slowed down expected due to market uncertainty around Brexit. I think like our president had said, Brexit is an issue. I saw manufacturing sector for UK growing up significantly in the second, third quarter of the year. Why? Because they are stocking already, waiting for October 31. But there's no easy way out. You see how Mr. Johnson, Boris, is under pressure. He doesn't have a solution to Brexit. Maybe it was a rash decision, or they never thought what it means to be out of EU. The issue of Iran backstop, the issue of the backstop, I think you know the backstop issue. On the government plans for full fiber connectivity by 2033. I think it's a reality, fiber. Then content, SDN, for those in the game, SDN, software-defined networking, isn't it? Software-defined networking and cloud computing will continue to drive smaller acquisitions. One issue we can't ignore, trade dispute with China continue to impact M&A. It will also affect even the price of handsets, the software and everything. More media acquisitions. Of course, I know some are from Econet. We also have the RAFTAF. I think you saw Kwese holding. It's a tough market. Many reasons could be there why they folded. Some economic reasons, some also to do with the media game and how tough it is sometimes, just to throw yourself in it. With the launch of 5G services in the first half of 2019, mergers and acquisitions activity expected to grow. Home automation, sluggish economic growth in the world, Japan and South Korea also to be big players in this. Allow me to move. Allow me to move on this. Let's look at the game changers, the big players in the market. Deliberately, I'm enjoying to look at the screen, not anything else. Look at Facebook. What happened there? Okay. You are looking at 199. These are not many figures. Enterprise value 458. EV EBITDA, enterprise value. I think for people in finance, enterprise value, we're talking what? Debt, isn't it? When we talk of equity plus debt minus cash, we talk of enterprise value. I think so. I'm not sure, but I'm quite confident that's what we are talking of. You are talking of what? 55.8, EBITDA 29.2, profit margin 39.64. Just look at the numbers here. Google started as a search engine. 18 years later, it had extended its reach to machine robotics, advertising, telephonics, market cap. Just look at the numbers we are talking of here. You're starting a business and you want to ignore ICT. Market cap. Apple, I think you know most of you, market cap, it actually breached 1 trillion at one point. It had just retreated. Now maybe it's just slightly above 800 billion today. Massive numbers. Uber. Who doesn't know Uber here? Founded in 2011. Just imagine the impact it has today. Since then, its valuation has increased by the tens of billions every year. Recently launches Uber Eats. I think you know about Uber Eats. Your food is delivered doorsteps. Available in 65 countries with over 600 cities worldwide being serviced. 15 million Uber trips completed each day. That's staggering. Revenue 11.3 billion. listing in 2019. There'd been a talk of listing, but I saw a lot of issues around it. Is it now listed? You're not sure on that. Or it's not yet listed? It's not, isn't it? Whatever reasons they are, but I think by all metrics, it's a company which can attract any serious investor. It's a buy stock if I was an equity analyst sitting and thinking of it. Let's just look at region. What's happening? Botswana, population 2.3 million. Burundi, 11 million. Kenya, can you see? Deliberately, I put Zimbabwe red and Kenya there. Zimbabwe and Kenya used to be compared so much. 50 million in terms of population. Population growth 2017 to 2020. Then GDP per capita, Zimbabwe. There's a debate obvious on GDP per capita for Zimbabwe because after we had rebased our GDP, I think we are now a lower middle income, isn't it? We are now a lower middle income as an economy. We are no longer your ordinary economy. So we are progressing. Then if you look at the GDP growth, this is average, although it's now in negative for Zimbabwe, 2.8, Kenya 5.0. Mobile market penetration, it's interesting, look at it, 84.3% for Zimbabwe. South Africa 156.4. Ghana, we're talking of 119%. So yes, we had progressed, but we are not top as we could claim. The other countries doing quite well on that. I think it's a fact that advances in technology since 2000 are quite very significant. Just look at sub-Saharan Africa versus the world in terms of progress there. Quite very exciting. This is mobile cellular subscriptions alone. Then I think my colleague was talking about autocratic versus democratic. Digitization also, it thrives more in a what? In a democratic setup. But generally, you need to open up for you to enjoy digitization. The more closed an economy is, the more you don't have space for digitization to come up. Your statutory instruments are what Babu Sisa we're talking about, which we call the delegated provisions, isn't it? Or the delegated legislations. In law, they call it, it's a source of law, but it's what? It's delegated. And it's a very unhealthy way sometimes of making laws. Because my understanding is when you make laws through statutory instruments, one thing you're looking at is time. It's not practical for you to debate it through the what? The House. So it means we are considered quite very restrictive globally as a country in terms of trade. A lot of instruments, tariffs. So generally when an economy is open, look at the GDP per capita for an open economy. Naturally it's higher than a closed economy. And that also goes hand in glove with ICT. Mostly open, mostly closed and closed. Like my colleague had said, China is just one of the unique cases. I was in China and you want to send me, you can't get it. They have their own anyway. The WeChat, whatever, even the payment models. But they managed to defy the common definition maybe of as a democracy to drive the economy forward. But I'm not sure if it is a good example for us. I'm not sure if it is a good example. Let me rush to, just look at the entrepreneurship system. When you talk of digitization, right now the government of Zimbabwe is talking about Industry 4.0. I'm fortunate that I sit in the Ministerial Advisory Committee dealing with the industrialization of the country and belong to that committee on Industry 4.0. So it's a fact that our government has that appetite to embrace digitization. But maybe, is it also a fact that we are ready for digitization? Look at the Kenya example. Industry, the digital entrepreneurship ecosystem in Kenya. You have mobile operators. I think what comes first, you think of Safaricom, which comes first to mind. ICT corporates, then capital, there's nothing explaining to you finance people in terms of business angels, venture capital investors, financial institutions, police, government, and research organizations. I think one of the worst things we have in the country, research. If you look at the budget of research in the country, I was just looking at the budget for Harvard, research alone. I noticed it's almost 5 billion. However, I didn't want to be shallow just to look at an absolute figure. Because when you look at Harvard, the economy maybe is bigger than Zim, isn't it? But still there's a propensity for research, which is one thing or one area we are lacking. So you can't talk digitization when this ecosystem is not in existence. The hubs, networks and community spaces, events and media. Media also needs to tell a good story. If you listen, read stories about America, Apple versus Huawei, just read any international publication which is pro-West. You will never hear anyone attacking Apple and supporting Huawei. So when you talk of digital entrepreneurship, it also involves the environment and the media itself. So if they are members of here, universities and training organizations. I looked at the skills rate in Zimbabwe right now. I think as experts you need to interrogate. I'm happy you have an HR expert here, whom you brought. It's important you can't have such a function and talk economic success without looking at skills. The skills level for the country on average is about what? 36%. When literacy is 92%. I try to even understand to profile the skills. I think commerce and humanities, your arts and what, are more than 100%. Engineers, maybe 13%. Medical, 6%. Even ICT experts, I'd seen executives from ICT companies. We don't only want experts in IT who troubleshoot, isn't it? Discover, think beyond the box. So obviously our university's education has to be reformed. Because if you have 92% RS and 36% skills rate, there's a gap already. Are we ready for digitization? Then developmental organizations or development organizations, professional service organizations, incubators and accelerators. Let me not waste time also on Kenya. I was just talking about the structure of Kenya's digital world. Why Kenya is doing well in Africa. Kenya is a good example actually. You see Safaricom there, the biggest player. Let me move on. I'm trying to deal with time. That's why you see I'm moving a bit fast. Then looking at Zimbabwe, the operating environment. I'm happy I noticed there's someone from Potras. Potras? Who's from Potras here? On the list I thought I saw Potras. It's you. It's two. Where are they? Okay, I'm sorry for, some people love to be behind the scenes, isn't it? Apologies on that. Let's just look at the operating environment here in Zimbabwe. There's a debate, for example, mobile space. People are saying, EcoCash, EcoCash. Maybe someone should teach me the crime of EcoCash agents. I heard there was even a right act read for EcoCash. How far true is it that they are a cause of a problem? I'm not going to play PR for Econet or EcoCash, but we need to understand the operating environment. Adjust the exchange rate movements. If you look at the tariffs in the country, I think it's very difficult for most companies to provide you a service. Let's not even talk of electricity and running what? Your generators. It's just not an easy environment. The mandatory infrastructure sharing, I don't know in terms of the mandate, shared infrastructure. It can be a cost to a private player. Why? Because it's not the same investment. You don't know even if a player in the public sector is paying the same expectations or taxes like you're doing as a private player. So on that, I think it's an issue. Reduction of out-of-bundle data tariff. Big data explosion, that's digitization. Increased use of analytics, data ownership, mining and monetization. Then in terms of market, fixed line subscriptions, up to date, we are talking of 268,849. Mobile subscriptions, almost 13 million. Mobile voice traffic, per specific time, we are talking of 1.328 minutes. Fixed voice traffic, 113 minutes. Oh, what's happening here? Economic, I think scarcity of foreign currency, it's a serious reality, it's an issue. Fiscal and monetary indiscipline, I think I'm not going to talk about those things. I'll just summarize the environment without explaining the economic side because we are talking digitization. Pricing distortions, government failure to honor obligations. I was just listening to Chipomtasa, my sister, I know Tewan is here. How much are they owed as a player in the market? That's the environment we are talking about. Then you talk of implementation of long-run incremental costing model, which is working in the ICT. I think as accountants, you face this and you know what I'm talking about on this. So generally what I'm showing on that picture is the environment for a player in the digital world, a digital company in Zimbabwe. Let me move to the next one. But someone will ask, what does digitization mean for a country which is so informalized like Zimbabwe? Does it make sense? I looked at the figures here. Can you look at how Zimbabwe is informalized versus the whole world? You're looking at Zimbabwe with an informal economy almost 61% of the total economy. This is 61% of the total economy, which is underground. Nigeria, for those who had gone to Nigeria, I think you know what an informal economy is like. They saw everything, including fuel. They say it in the streets. They've got oil, but they import oil from where? From Benin, from the bordering countries. Culture of informality. Look at Gabon, Angola. Just. So the question here is this not an opportunity for digitization? You're in a country where informality is at this level. So Zimbabwe is the third largest informalized economy in the world officially, according to IMF. And the largest in sub-Saharan Africa. So when an economy is so informal and the mobile penetration goes up, sometimes you can't use it as an indicator of how it progressed. Maybe because infrastructure is not there, but there's no choice. you need to have a bigger picture on that. Yesterday there was a debate on the 2%. I said, let me just add. I think the wisdom of the government in introducing 2%, they were looking at such an economy. So the risk of running a budget surplus or a fiscal surplus or a current account surplus when you have such an economy it's under the ground, isn't it? You can say your imports are 3 billion, but in reality maybe they are 6 billion, isn't it? Yes. Your exports are 4 billion, but maybe in reality they are bigger than that. Smuggling, it's a reality. Mkoma, you were talking of gold. We have big deposits of gold. But the problem now we have, if you look at Zimbabwe's contribution of gold to the world, in Africa only, you know Zimbabwe's contribution of gold output in Africa alone, regardless of our volumes, it's 4%. Gold output, all of Africa, what Zimbabwe contributes. Small-scale miners in Zimbabwe, they contribute almost 60% of gold output. These are the realities. But here in digitization, how do you tap these people who are underground? Because digitization is an upside risk, potential for you to bring them on board. But we are informalized. I think it's a fact. And 2%, I think it was fair. Forgive me, but just talking to this, I'm talking of readiness to digitization. I compared the number of players. Tier 1, Econet, I'm sorry, I intentionally mobbed Econet and Liquid in one. I know Econet is not Liquid and Liquid is not Econet. It's not one company. Net 1, Teleso. So, when we talk of digitization, someone could be asking, in our context, what is it? 1, I'm looking at the telecom side. 2, the media. Lastly, the technology platform. Let's look at how these companies are faring in terms of satisfying that. Wireless. Am I seeing clearly? Someone from Tier 1 might teach me if you had gone wireless. But you have, is it CDM? What is it? For wireless. But I'm not sure if it is still effective. Maybe someone will. It's okay. Look at Liquid in terms of wireless. Net 1, there's a tick. Teleso, there's a tick. Then you look at, I'm sorry, my eyes. Maybe I'll use my other screen. This one I can see better than this. Just look at the preparedness of your, in terms of fixed, I think Tier 1 everyone knows. Liquid, Net 1, I'm not sure about fixed. In fact, I don't think they have a fixed one. They're with Teleso. Also, this is just the marketing side, enterprise and retail or fiber. You are talking fiber there. Media own the content, unless if Tier 1 now is its own content in terms of media. Then you look at Econet, I think they had, before Kwese, Flanta. But now we can't talk of it. Then Net 1 in Teleso, there's nothing. DTH, that's direct to home, isn't it? Satellite. I know. Tel 1, they're a player. Liquid Telecoms, there was nothing. Even Econet, I don't know of a satellite from Econet. Net 1 and Teleso. Free to air, internet protocol, TV, mobile. This is media side. Then fintech, mobile money. We can't talk of Tier 1. Payment systems, no Tier 1. Digital banking, no player. They're microinsurance. Then you look at Econet, I think, as an integrated fintech company. It's not surprising that we talk of ticks on that. Then Net 1. But now maybe we can talk digital banking, Net 1. I don't know of it. Then Teleso, the same applies. Technology, Internet of Things. I think all of us, I'm not going to waste time on what Internet of Things is, that connection. But look at power. Power is also an element of digitization. Power is also an element of digitization. So if you say you are going digital and you don't have an alternative power source, you are not yet digitalized. Just 3 weeks ago or a month, you heard about a number of players in the market saying we don't have electricity, that's why network is going down. Big players in the market are coming up with their own private power, independent power producer. So power is also a matrix in the digitization world. Then on-demand platforms, I think most of the organizations in the country, they've gone far, especially these ones. For Net 1, I'm not sure now if they have it, but for Econet, for example, Via, it's a clear case of on-demand platform, isn't it? Just look at the years of transformation here, from 2012 to 2018, in terms of digitization. First mobile network launched. A total mobile subscribers 4.6 million in 2012. Total fixed subscribers 300,000. We had seen the total fixed subscribers going down somewhat. Internet penetration was about 31% in 2012. Look at how we have moved here. We are talking of multi-platform digital banking, listing of first fintech company, like I said, 2018. So for Zimbabwe, it's not that bad, but cumulatively, we are talking of almost 800 million cumulative investment in this industry since 2012, which is quite very positive. Value of transactions, I think you can see first half, which is the blue color, first half of 2018, and the, is it orange or what? My color interpretation can be horrible. That's for 2019. Look at the value of transactions going through RTGS. Look at the transactions for mobile, internet, and it shows you how we are embracing digitization as a country. Value of transaction dominated by RTGS. I think if you look at my presentation here, mobile subscribers 12.8 million, mobile penetration about 88%. But look at the numbers here. Econet dominating in terms of mobile money. Almost 95%, followed by Net 1 and Teleso. There's an opportunity. Go to the developed world and see how digital factory had come about. In terms of data centers, in terms of music streaming, our musicians are still talking about kubirwa music, yeah? You record your song and you can't know what's happening to it. Digitization will solve that problem. Gaming, online gaming, gaming devices, sports, video and audio conferences, all that are opportunities in digitization. I think allow me to conclude and say thank you very much for the opportunity. Digitization is the way to go. Some people might think maybe avoiding a computer is a good way of somehow doing your job with your notebook every day. You know, if you go to some offices, you see notebooks. You see files, people are still writing down. But technology is pushing us, the ease and cost of doing business. I think, you know, this week, World Bank is releasing numbers for Zimbabwe in terms of ease of doing business. One of the worst countries in Africa in that ranking being Zimbabwe. And the only way we can close it is when we accept that we are lagging in terms of digitization. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Mkaka, for that presentation. May we give him another round of applause as they take their seats for the round of questions. You know, what you have just said about us going digitalized reminded me when the earlier presentation came about from the CCG systems when they were showing us that gadget, the web HR thing. A technician was called to this home to fix an internet connection. And the husband, the wife was in the kitchen and the husband was on the other side. And the technician asked for the password, and the husband shouts to the wife from there and says, "Can you give us the password?" And the lady of the house simply says, "Start 123 with a capital S." And they tried, they couldn't figure it out more than 2 times and 3 times. And the husband then shouts, "Please come and show us." And the woman was grumbling, you know, us when we're grumbling and going there to the computer, and she just sits there, says, "I really don't understand how difficult it can be. Typing just 1, 2, 3. And she was busy typing start 1, 2, 3. And they all looked at her. It was START 1, 2, 3 with a capital S. So they couldn't figure it out. So it's important to be fair with the internet things, to be fair with digitalization as business executives. Otherwise, you continue calling technicians for things that you can do as an executive. Thank you very much. At this point in time, I will call for questions which are already appearing there. We already have some questions for you, gentlemen. The first one is to Mr. Mkaka. The second one, CCG, can your system be integrated with other systems? I'm sure they will respond to that one on the platform. The other one, the next one again is for CCG. They will respond on the platform. And the last one is, oh, you moved too fast. Can you please reveal your source of statistics? I'm not so sure who is that one is directed to, because both gentlemen, I think, gave some statistics, whether it's to the last speaker. To Mr. Mkaka, yes, digitalization is the way to go. Is it then moral to tax 2% on the poor people who are failing to make a living? CCG will refer it to CCG, and the next one is CCG as well, will refer it to CCG, and we'll ask them to post their responses therein. What is digitization? How do we differentiate it from the analog? For the time being, I will ask the 2 gentlemen to pick up what referred to them and then respond. I think mostly a couple referred to Mr. Mkaka.
Yes, digitization is a way to go, comma. I think it's clear it's a way to go, isn't it? That one is clear. But then is it then moral to tax 2% on the poor people who are failing to make a living? Anyone you can ask this question, the answer is predictable, isn't it? It's a big no. But then maybe the question is, when you are faced with such an economy, I think we can write books about why. The major question is, why do we have an informal economy like this? It's a case of policy failure. Are we together on that? It's clear. But when policy failure creates this informality, the only way is to pay taxes. The potholes you are seeing in the streets are confirmation that the economy is underground. And the unfortunate thing now is someone is paying, but there are very few people who are paying for that. The other, maybe today, 25% are not paying anything to that effect. But it's immoral. But I think government had to do it. I'm sorry, I will not be popular on that. But the government, maybe the only problem is after picking the 2%, are they telling everyone how they are using the 2%? Maybe it becomes then an interesting subject. Because when you use 2% to buy vehicles, to go into the black market after taking that 2% to buy forex, to buy vehicles, for the bureaucracy, it becomes a challenge. We can't abuse it. Thank you.
Yes, maybe on the statistics, someone was querying the statistics.
Well, I think you respond on his statistics, but I also presented statistics. I'm not sure what it means when they say the source of statistics. It's important.
Yeah, well, I had statistics, but mine I had put underneath what my sources were: Ministry of Finance, Reserve Bank. I also had some from Africa House in terms of the standard deviation, the issue that I presented on volatility on autocratic and democratic markets. It comes from Africa House, who do research on emerging markets. Yeah. Most of the, unless the person has a particular statistic that they are querying, the capacity utilization is from the Confederation of Zimbabwe Industries. That's where that source is from.
Okay, thank you. I see the CCG guy is here, but looking at the number of questions regarding the web HR, I think there are a lot of questions and technical questions. I don't know how available you are so that we can refer people to you. Otherwise, we'll spend the whole day dealing with that gadget. I think it's of interest to people. If I may know whether you are available, where you are available, we can advise people to see you for further clarity, because there is a lot referring to your presentation. If you could advise where we can get hold of you.
All right, thank you very much. We are still available here. You can visit our stand, and we can also get our contacts. We are even available to visit your offices after the conference. But to briefly answer the two questions, Web HR is an HR system on its own. Yes, it can be integrated to other systems. And how do you move with the gadget? The gadget is just a way of demonstration, but Web HR, you can access Web HR on your phone, or in your laptops, and we can customize to your liking.
Thank you so much. Any further questions?
Yeah, there is a question. I deliberately going to make sure my brother, who is very technical here, respond to it on the difference between analog and digitization. Mr. Nevangowe from Danemtand. Can you respond, please?
Good afternoon. I think the clearest example of the difference between analog and digitization is to look at what has been happening at ZBC. I think we've all been made aware of their need to create additional TV stations and also additional radio stations. One of the constraints that they've been having is that most of their systems have been analog, and they've been involved in trying to upgrade those ones to make sure that the systems are created in such a way that they can then begin to use connectivity, Internet of Things, and all other related digitization methods to enable them to have the additional radio stations and the TV stations. So analog is what ZBC was a year or two ago, and digitization is what ZBC aspires to be going into the future. I just decided to use an example that is closer to home for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ncube. I see we've got a question. I think this one refers to Mr. Moyo. If you are in a council like PAC where the decisions of the majority are not considered, how would you react? Do you pull out or keep quiet or quit?
Well, I was going to answer like Jesus and say, what do you think? What think ye? But I think the processes of the advisory council, they are documented. I'm not sure whether I can unpack. I don't have a mandate to, unfortunately, discuss PAC processes. I know that there's generally a public demand, sort of, but that's up to the principal talk to the president. He's the one who put it together and he can answer you. As for my part, I'm there to contribute. I've been lobbying for industry for the past 12 years and I continue to do so when I'm allowed. But kufuna madoda civil. It's not for the faint-hearted.
Thank you, Mr. Moyo. I don't see a hand from here, but I can see the CEO there has got something.
It's just a question to the two gentlemen. So, the world over, digital economies, those countries that have adopted or are working towards the digital economy, have seen their economies improving or taking a leapfrog into what they want to achieve. We have got 2030 in Zimbabwe. The same applies with India. They also have a 2030 program. But India have developed or have set a budget aside to develop infrastructure, digital infrastructure. Now, when you look at Zimbabwe, you sort of think of digital villages. You can almost embrace those remote areas if you are going to get this right, correct? Now, to what extent is our government investing in digital infrastructure? And I just want your thoughts. It might not be authoritative, but just your thoughts.
Mfundisi, he wants me to answer, but I know very little about digital. But what I can tell you, as a sort of a futurist, is that I think they've said in 2030, these are Africa Watch and a few other minds, think tanks, they've said that by 2030, the internet will be a human right. Access to internet will be a human right. So you won't be able to say, you know, we don't have internet. So that's very instructive of where we are going. But I think that these things, I asked a question earlier on about millennials. Africa will mostly be young. In 2050, Africa is mostly young. The percentage of young people in Africa, even now, is larger than any other young people's population, you know, in terms of continents. So that's instructive when we look at millennials, and we need to understand, because they are all networked. My brother there is halfway, he's half in, half out. So his answer was, look, they must fit in. I also have that model. They must fit in, but they won't. We are the ones that need to understand, because they are the future consumers of royal cooking oil. So I need to understand how these people think. So I think that for me, with infrastructure, it's always pulling in rather than pushing in. It's the young people that are demanding this infrastructure because they're interconnected, they buy on the internet. My son the other day, he's 13 years old, he ordered something on Alibaba and it arrived. I had to go to the post office and get it, and I said, how did you do it? You know, so this is the kind of situation that we're seeing. The young are going to pull in that infrastructure that we need and the connectivity. I really don't think that is up to government. I think that it's what the population is asking for, and government will have to respond.
So just to give you an example, in 2015 I attended the World Economic Forum in Kigali, Rwanda, and I was told that Kigali, the government took a deliberate move to have fiber in 4,000 kilometers. So everywhere you are, you're connected.
No, but it's an important question. Elders, the answer, he gave it quite well. But it's important also for you to understand that when you talk of digitization across the world, it's the private sector. I heard you linked government. Let's agree government's role is the environment. You go to Silicon Valley. I think you had visited Shanghai or Shanghai in China. It's the new Silicon Valley. If you see progress there, Dubai, the private sector players will continue being the engine of digitization in any economy. So any attempt to expect government to feel the pressures, you should be selling the services to government as the digital players, not the other way around.
Who sets the tone? I raise my case.
Yeah, who sets the tone is both government and ourselves as the leaders of private sector. You don't wait for one player. It has to be very clear there.
Thank you so much. Maybe the last question that's appearing on our screen. Does competition exist in Zimbabwe, and so why do prices increase in the same pattern? For Mr. Moyo?
Thank you very much for that question. It's anonymous. It's very important to understand government has a role to control maybe 2 or 3 prices. the price of the exchange value of money against other currencies, which is our exchange rate. The price of money in an economy, which is interest rate. Those two prices drive the whole economy. It's not a function of competition in business as such. I look at our sector. We've got different prices. Even though we are the Oil Expressors Association, people price differently. Sometimes I'm cheaper, sometimes my competitors get to me and I'm pushing my staff to say, what is our costing? Let's review our costing. So that's what competition does. I can speak for our sector. So I don't think the rising of prices is an absence of competition. It is a function of our economy failing or struggling to maintain prices of exchange rate, prices on interest rate, the macroeconomic pricing that then affects everything. And it's not a competition issue. I think that, that's not really, yes.
Yeah, thank you, President. I think, I'm not sure the basis of the question, but the issue of cartels had been spoken about, for example, in the country. I'm just thinking maybe the innuendos on cartels are part of the question. Maybe representing Competition and Tariff Commission as a commissioner myself, I would say maybe it's important to have an appreciation of the competition laws of the land first. Because I'd read a lot of stories, some of them I learn about them in the newspaper to say, so and so is a cartel. I'm not exonerating a cartel if it exists, but you should also have an appreciation to be able to separate between the political definition of a cartel and the real definition according to the Competition Act. Because in politics, if I link with what you consider to be a wrong guy, it's easy to label me what? Part of the cartel. But competition, it exists, I can tell you, because we handle a lot of issues on mergers. In Zimbabwe, I think there are behemoth companies which seems to be growing too big. I will not mention names here, but we are watching them. And I think competition exists in the country.
Yes. Do you have statistical evidence of TSP? Well, nail on the head. I'm with you on that one. I also want it. One of the challenges we've got here is our planning matrix and our review matrix. We give these presentations and they're always zero-based. You come with a fresh presentation like you didn't say anything last year. If you said something, I think we need to follow through. And on the TSP, I do agree, we need to have a dashboard, and as private sector, not PAC, as private sector, CZI, we've been asking, can we have a matrix for this TSP? Where is it? What dashboard are we using? My brother there is from, brother Respect is from HR. You need, just like we have the reviews, we need to review the TSP based on a dashboard. And Minister Ncube will tell us, he can mark himself against his own, and then we can, that's how we do our reviews in our company. I don't know whether that's right. I asked the employee, mark yourself, and then I agree with you or disagree. Self-evaluation. So Ministry of Finance has to have a self-evaluation of the TSP, and then we can adjudicate whether their valuation of themselves is correct. So I'm with you. If you can succeed, also pound on some doors and get us that, will be better as an economy.
Okay. I'm sure the questions have been answered. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together as the panel goes down for the wonderful work that they have done. Thank you so much. Please, let's follow up on CCG systems for their further clarification within their stand. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Can I say something?
Okay, beautiful. Just a bit. Okay.
I requested just to say something. After presentations, we present both positive and negative information, but it's all to build the country. Let me give a practical example of a gentleman. Maybe I'll wrap up by that. You remember the implications of that. There's a certain gentleman who is rated to be one of the most influential academics for the century. Most of you heard about Albert Einstein. Your quintessential intellectual, you can think of whatever. This is what happened to Albert Einstein. He was in a bus in the state of Alabama. It's a real story, it's not a joke. And I want to just contextualize it to Zimbabwe scenario today. While he's in a bus, you know, then when you get into a bus, a conductor or an inspector will give you a ticket, which will write your destination. From here, if you are going to Wanke, the bus will have a ticket written Wanke, the destination. I think you appreciate, especially the non-millennials, when we used to queue for buses. So while he's in the bus, Albert Einstein lost his ticket. This is Professor Einstein. After losing his ticket, the conductor came to Einstein and said, Professor Einstein, why are you worried about looking for the ticket? Because Einstein was down the rails of the bus, looking everywhere for the ticket, and he couldn't get it. The conductor left. After 4 or 5 minutes, he came back. He saw Einstein is still looking for the same ticket. You know what the conductor said? The conductor said, Mr. Einstein, who doesn't know you? You're a public figure. There's no way you would have cheated yourself into the bus. So don't worry about this. But he continued looking for the ticket. You know why he did it? He responded and said, the problem is not about who I am as professor. The problem is about my destiny because it's written on the ticket. So you shouldn't worry when I continue looking for that ticket. So I think we'll go far as a nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. As we conclude, we've come to the end of this session.